Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Gus Ramsey.
Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming out today, and good morning to everybody watching on the live stream as well. We appreciate you all being here. Today's a great day for us. We have an outstanding panel, and I think a really interesting discussion coming your way. So let me begin with introductions. We'll start down there at the end. He is a guest faculty member who's been with us since day one, and we appreciate his insight and his wisdom with our students. He began his career in radio, found his way to TV, and shortly thereafter found his way into your homes and your hearts. Mr. Jay Harris. She is the newest member of our guest faculty. We're very excited to have her. She began her career in this business at age 19, and look at her just 3 short years later, all that she has done. Nicole Briscoe. And he began his career at age 21, making him the oldest paper boy on his block, but he has pedaled his way all the way to SportsCenter, Mr. Randy Scott. I rehearsed that all morning.
That's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I want to start with a couple stories that have dominated the sports headlines in 2020, and then we'll switch on to some lighter things. But I want to talk about the Kobe story and the Astros story from a couple different perspectives. And Nicole, I'll start with you. We had a session with some of our students a couple days after Kobe and all the others died in the helicopter crash, talking about the difficulty of presenting a story like that and trying to find the right tone. You were on air the next morning. What were the challenges for you in doing a story like that?
Nothing sounded right. I'll be 100% honest. Like, the first time I opened my mouth to say something on TV, nothing sounded right. Like, I knew what I was feeling. And for some people, it's a complicated story. Kobe the person, Kobe the basketball player, you can talk about this in 2 different ways. Kobe the parent. What made it relatable? What made it so heartbreaking for a lot of us? For me, was the family element, the fact that he was a father, the kids that he left behind, the other kids on the helicopter. And there was a lot going on in my head. And when I opened my mouth at 7 o'clock in the morning to sort of speak out loud for the first time, nothing sounded right. The tone of my voice didn't sound right. The volume of my voice didn't sound right. And it was hard. We said afterwards, it was almost like we needed to practice it. Do like a live run through, because it even for someone who's been sitting at a desk for a while, it just didn't sound right. And it probably is one of the harder stories I think I've ever had to do.
So at 8 o'clock, you did it again. Now, sometimes you will record your show at 7 and say, hey, that segment worked, let's keep it, and we'll run it back. How much of the 8 o'clock hour did you do over, and what adjustments did you make?
I think we did the entire 7 o'clock over again.
Yeah, we did.
Honestly.
We did.
We definitely did the top of the show over. And in fact, when we did the top of the show again at 8, like, it felt a little like a weight was lifted, like, okay, that was better. That did it justice. That sounded right. That felt right. And even in the control room, they kind of commented the same thing. And we didn't do it again at 9. We were happy with what we did at 8. Mm-hmm. Yeah, confession, we do 3 hours, but not all of the 3 hours is live, because sometimes you actually have to take a potty break.
Randy, what adjustments did you feel like you made between the 7 and the 8?
Thanks for coming to me off the potty break. No, the adjustments were live pictures. I mean, us being on the East Coast and checking in on the Staples Center in Los Angeles, it's literally going to look different. I mean, you can't say, hey, live look at the sort of impromptu Kobe memorial and murals and all of that was as the sun's coming up in Los Angeles, or even dark at 4 a.m. when we're coming on at 7 on the East Coast. So it was a literal change in what we were looking at, what we were reacting to. And I think in terms of what you're talking about, needing sort of a dry run at it, we didn't know what the live pictures were going to be.
Yeah.
So we're ad-libbing. That there was sort of this extended breaking news element to it where you're reacting to what you're seeing and you're voicing it, and you have to watch your tone and you have to watch your volume, like you said. And normally it's really up tempo at the top of the show because it's like, hey, wake up. And that's sometimes what you say literally is, wake up.
Wake up.
And you can't do that when an icon is dead.
I also feel like it took an hour to feel okay to feel, if that makes any sense. Like it took an hour to get comfortable with what we were talking about and how we were talking about it. And sort of like when you're talking about a person who's died, there's a lot of sadness there. And it wasn't just the basketball player who died, it was the father, it was another father, it was another family. There were lots of kids on that helicopter. So you're talking about people who died, and that's sad. But you're also talking about an NBA icon. And if you look at his on-court accomplishments, I mean, you have to, that is respect. That's why we put him on this pedestal. So it sort of took an hour for us to figure out how to feel the right feelings at the right moment and to be okay with it and sort of to own it a bit more.
Jay, in watching the coverage, it was pretty noticeable to me that the news outlets, CNN and those types, were pretty straightforward because they deal with tragedy all the time. All the sports outlets, universally to me, it felt almost personal for the anchors reporting on the stories. How do you try to find that balance when you deal with a story like that?
Honestly, I don't think about it. I try to be a human being and react in the moment. I'd never met Kobe. Hannah covered him, knew him. So we approached it just like, okay, let's just tell the story. We had the noon show that day after these guys were done. And we just made calls to people that we knew that could tell the story, tell his story. So it was more personal, but we tried to be as human as possible. And at one point, I think Hannah was talking to Bob Costas, and she almost cried on television. And okay, let it go. I put the tissue right there just in case she needed it, because we're human beings, and these were human beings on that helicopter. So it's for us, it was personal, but it was okay to feel. I can't speak to the news outlets. I mean, I used to do news, so I understand what you're saying. It's just another kind of story. But I saw more humanity from the news outlets on this story than I'd seen on other stories because of and that speaks to who Kobe was and is. Just be human.
The other important lesson that we learned from this story, we're reminded of it all the time, is the rush to be first. Anybody who saw Rick Fox on TNT talking about having to answer phone calls and text messages from friends and family who thought he had died because it was reported that way, it was the first time I can really remember seeing an actual victim of mistaken reporting in that way. So Jay, just take us behind the curtain a little bit at ESPN and what the process is in terms of trying to make sure you've got a story right before you report it, because ESPN was one of the last to go with it.
And I appreciate that about ESPN, because first, who cares, to be honest with you, right?
Doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, just be right, or as right as you can be. So we have a whole team of news editors. We get stories that come in. We see things on the internet, and we shoot it to them, and they vet it. And they keep vetting, and it's a continual process. I thought it was, I was home on that Sunday, and I saw the news, and people started calling me and texting me, asking me, and I kind of felt like, wow, maybe I built up some sort of credibility, and the place that I work has built up some sort of credibility that they would ask me before they believe TMZ. So I think we do a decent job with that in vetting and try to get the story right, not necessarily first.
I think sometimes it depends on the story too, because if it's a story that people don't want to believe, I think that played into it on my end. And I probably didn't have half the people calling me who called you or texted you, but it's like, this can't be real.
Yes, there was a lot of that.
Please tell me TMZ is wrong.
Who
Please
was
tell
it
me
for
it's-
you when they put it out that you were like, oh no, this is
Woj.
for real? Me too.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't believe it until Adrian Wojnarowski put it out there, and that's our guy.
Yeah.
Like
See-
I wasn't going to believe it until it came from his mouth or his fingers.
I believed it immediately because as much as we rag on TMZ, they rarely get that initial thing wrong.
That is true.
That's true.
And
That's
that
true.
when I heard it, I was
I
like,
didn't want to believe it.
I didn't
Yeah,
want to
that's-
either.
I didn't want to.
I'm like, they don't normally miss. I mean, some of the other things after that, in the rush to, okay, let's get more, yeah, but the
Yeah.
initial thing, I kind of knew.
But it's like anyone who has one of these feels like they can be a reporter.
Yep.
Anyone who has one of these feels like they can put information out there, and you can be standing on a street corner tweeting something about a car accident, but you're not thinking about the impact of the words
Yep.
that you're putting out there on this phone. Think about, like, if you come across an accident and you post pictures and you say something and you're reporting something without actual facts, what if somebody's family member sees that before they've been properly alerted?
Yep.
Think about what you're doing, the impact of your words, what you write. And if you're not doing it responsibly and in the right way, it's tremendously sad and it's irresponsible. And I think we saw a lot of that with this Kobe situation.
Yeah, it's funny to me because of social media being first is less important than ever. Prior to social media, it was just you owned the story. My station is reporting it. No one else has it, so you have to come to me. Now, 30 seconds after anybody breaks a story, 10 other people have confirmed it and said first reported by so-and-so, but we forget who first reported. And it's so insignificant that getting it right, we saw firsthand the importance in that. As we go through this morning, I don't want to just save questions for the end because I don't want you to raise your hand and say, hey, 40 minutes ago you were talking about this. So before we move on, does anybody have any questions about this topic? If so, put your hand up and they'll bring a mic to you. One there in the back.
Jacob Togney. How many phones do Adrian Wojnarowski and Adam Schefter have on them on air?
I think it's at least two.
Yeah.
At all times.
Yeah, I think it's 2 each.
It's at least two.
And they're the reasons, I remember we talked about this last night, there was a very, and is a very high-ranking person at ESPN who once, I mean, within the last 8 years, because that's how long I've been there, sent an email that was like, no phones on the set.
Yeah.
No phones
Whatever.
on the set. People are getting distracted. You remember that?
Yeah.
People
We
were
like,
missing,
whatever, dude.
missing the start of segments. You come back from commercial and somebody would be, you know, tweeting something or texting something, and now you have to. And honestly, it's because of, I think, Adam, because Adam was there before Woj, so I think it's the Adam Schefter rule, and we're all better because of
I've had Adam take phone calls during segments.
And are you changing the channel if you see that?
No.
No.
I have asked him questions before where I sort of felt like Earth to Adam, where he's been so into his phone, though.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Or like it's felt at times mildly disrespectful, but you never know what's happening on his phone. So it's like you don't want to call him out on it, but it's like, whoa, hey, buddy, we're over here.
Yeah, well, if he says, all right, toilet paper and milk, got it.
But like sometimes I feel like that might happen, you know, because like he sort of like is constantly in this rotation of like balancing everything that he may forget what he's actually really doing at any given moment.
Well, he's changed his role throughout the industry. He's probably top 3 ESPN hires of all time for all that he's done. And literally.
Right behind us.
Jerry
right.
J. Harrison.
Sorry, top 4.
Obviously.
Top 4. But he's changed the way insiders are looked at and how the job is done. And he's a really interesting case study for the evolution of broadcasting.
And also changed the look of things because you remember we're old. So growing up, you see the news guy and everything is like this
Excuse
and serious
me.
and blah blah.
Yeah.
The newswoman lady and
No, I think it's the old, yeah.
Oh, you're old. Stop.
I think it's more.
I told you, 19, first job, 3 years later.
So Jay is dead to me now. He's gonna sit like this the rest of the day.
But but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but now it's just so, and I go back to human. We're human beings. Okay, we're on television, but we're human beings. And if there's a mistake that happens, I'm not going to say rare technical difficulties. No, the light broke, whatever. Because you're at home, you're watching. You know, you're not dumb. And if I have to cough, I'm going to cough. If something's funny, I'm going to laugh because so he's part of that too.
Yes.
Well, even just the communication with the control room now, right? I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, okay, we don't have that video. Well, you never saw that
Yeah.
20 years ago. You
Yeah.
just had to kind of steam through it and take your wax and move on.
But I think that the more comfortable, I always say, and we've talked about this, because Randy and I tend to anchor together more than I think some of the other pairings.
Yeah.
But
They're really good, by the way.
thank you. But I think like
a
we
makeup
want it
comment.
to feel like, don't you want it to feel in the morning like, okay, you're getting up, you're getting ready to go, and you turn on the TV and you're watching the show, and you sort of want the show to feel like you're eavesdropping on a conversation between friends, right? You're an intelligent conversation between friends, where it's okay to laugh, it's okay to poke fun, it's okay to be serious, it's okay to learn something, but it's sort of that human element. Like we want to connect to you. We're just like you. We may have to get up a little earlier in the morning, but
And we have makeup
We are
on.
you, right?
Yeah.
But like I think that has become okay over the last, I don't know however many years. Like you used to have to be very, that is the news, and it's not like that anymore.
I think in part because of just the proliferation of outlets. Everybody can be live now. Any one of you can turn on your phone right now and be live. And so we don't care necessarily what anybody looks or sounds like anymore because we're so used to seeing everybody on a screen.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to watch somebody. I want to engage with somebody that's going to make me happy, smarter. It's going to make my day better.
But it is such a fine line between trying to stand out. Like you can't look like you're trying too hard.
No.
Like if you're too
Don't be that
sticky,
person.
if you're too, alliterative, if like, your name is Paul and you want to pick games and it's Paulie's Picks and you're like, I got a brand, I'm good. Like, no, you have to have substance. You have to have, like you said, a connection with people. And we'll mess, like, does anybody here have like an Alexa or a Google Home or a Siri? Like we will mess with that through,
Yeah, you will, won't
through
you?
television.
Yeah.
Sometimes
me
we
one
do that.
more.
We're like, Alexa, play Baby Shark. And he'll text us and be like, why is Baby Shark playing in my house? And
No,
like,
I know why Baby Shark is playing in my
we
house.
just do that, yeah.
It's because of you two. That's why.
That's very true. We'll just do that to keep it light and you'll remember that, right? Like you'll remember, oh yeah, those are the two chuckleheads who made Baby Shark play in my house or on my phone.
All right, I want to switch gears to the Astros, but not the cheating scandal itself, but the coverage of it. I'm an old dog, I'm old school. I came from the camp that I don't care who you root for as a sportscaster. I don't really want to know. And for a long time, we never let people know who we rooted for. And it's become a thing. And I will tell you honestly that there are some people on the air who I know to be, and the world knows to be, big Houston Astros fans. And so when they were reporting on this story, I looked at them kind of cross-eyed, and I was really paying attention to make sure that I thought they were being on the up and up, that they were asking all the questions, that they were providing all the information. Because if you don't, your credibility is shot, at least in my eyes. We talked a little bit about this last night. Nicole, you had a different slant on it, so I'll let you start.
I think we're not news anchors, right? We're sports anchors, and we talk about sports, and sports is a very human thing. And I'm in the camp where I want to relate to the people I'm watching, and I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, and I don't try to hide that on the air. But I also think, I know it's complicated, like Wisconsin, Illinois, but I also think that in a lot of ways, when you're watching someone and you know where their allegiance is, that makes them relatable. And you're like, God, well, my team just lost 6 in a row, but your team lost 6 in a row. And you're sort of having that human connection kind of thing. Now, I don't think that because I'm a fan of something that I can't report on it and give it to you straight. Like, I have no problem telling you if my team has made a mistake. I have no problem telling you if my team didn't make a mistake. You have to be willing to be honest in that, and you are putting yourself out there. But I disagree. I think going back to that human connection, I think it's important to sort of be honest. Like, you didn't get in sports because you're not a sports fan. Like,
Yeah,
No,
but what
go ahead, Jake.
I trust you because you are a journalist at heart and you're going to tell me the story. If it was the Cubs involved in what the Astros did, you are not going to sugarcoat it.
No.
Because you're a journalist and you're going to tell the story, damn the source of the story. You're going to tell the story. So I think it depends on the person. I'm not saying maybe the reason they got into this profession or they let their allegiance to their team overshadow the reason they got into this profession, but you have to stay a journalist. You have to stay a storyteller. It doesn't matter the story.
No.
Just tell the damn story.
Right. Yes. Why are you looking at me?
I'm done. I like your makeup this
I
morning.
think it's absolutely. I'm not wearing a stitch of makeup. I think it's absolutely. I think that's. You run the risk. I'll say that.
You
And I
do.
remember having the conversation about a colleague of ours who's not at ESPN anymore, but is working in his hometown.
Oh, okay.
He's working in his hometown, and he's a big Cleveland guy.
Got it.
And Cleveland had a really rough patch for a really long time. And if anybody here is a Cleveland sports fan, the LeBron title
This is
aside,
like before LeBron.
you still deserve a hug, and probably several hugs. And I say that as a Raider fan. But like when the Raiders have a scandal, and it's coming because they're the Raiders, I'll be able to report it. But I will also not begrudge the Gus's of the world who may know that I'm a Raider fan, their skepticism, and you just sort of have to be willing to deal with that potential trade-off. I think. Is that fair? I'm sort of playing both sides, but
Yeah, I just think it brings more scrutiny to you and,
Yeah.
and demands that you deliver, because any
I guess I'm fine with that.
any
same here.
misstep,
yeah.
you risk your credibility, you risk your audience. Because if I feel like you're not being truthful, I'm going to a station that is.
But isn't that going to happen on any story?
On any story, yes, but I'm going to look at it more difficultly from my perspective, knowing what I know going in. And like, oh, you're a huge Astros fan. You better show me something
So
here.
let me
I
ask
don't-
you this. In the way that the world is now, where you have Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and name your social media feed, and you're living your life, right? And you put stuff out there. I went on a hike with my kids the other day, and I just happened to be wearing a Cubs hat. How do I avoid letting people know just by being me?
Right.
Even if I don't talk about it on air, how do I avoid letting people know my sporting allegiance?
Well, you can't, but can you separate your social media you from your on-air you?
No, because I've learned to accept me for who I am, and when you watch me, you get me for better or for worse, and I stopped caring about making it two different people a while
go.
ago.
I think you.
There you go. That's it. That's it.
But there was a time where that was totally unacceptable.
It was.
And
I wonder when did that change?
for
Great
me,
question.
it kind of started to change with Stu Scott because of North Carolina.
Okay.
And
That was
Okay.
a while ago, by the way.
yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like the
And
90s.
then, I don't think people didn't know that Chris Berman liked the Niners and the Bills and Andy Reid and the 4 or 5 other teams that he likes. But it was never in your face, these are my teams, these are my boys.
So I
Yeah,
do
kinda
feel
it
that
was.
way.
In yes, it was.
Yeah, I feel
What,
so.
with Boomer?
Yes.
I'm old, obviously, as Jay has established. So I graduated high school in 1998. We're talking about when Stu made this okay. We're talking about late 90s, right? So my entire, like, sort of, where you're putting these anchors on pedestals and you're sort of wanting to be them and emulate them. That's the world in which I grew up. Like that.
Yeah, but the social media aspect changed it a lot because
That is
now,
true.
now
It
there's
did.
a larger platform to put your allegiances out there.
That is true, but I'm older. I graduated high school in '83, and ESPN was 4 years old when I graduated high school, and Chris Berman was doing it from jump with the teams that he liked. So if you watched that network, you didn't need social media because you were all on that network, and that's what you saw. And you learned to deal with it. Those are his teams. Those are his guys.
Do you feel like Gus is
Okay.
telling us to get off his lawn right now?
A little bit, yeah.
Like a crocheted
There's
blanket
like a
on.
cloud.
Get off my lawn.
Oh, yeah, I don't like you.
If I can make it serious and awkward for a second, which I'd like to do, I feel like you're more at risk of it at the college level with regard to college allegiances because the fan bases are rabid and sometimes the
Have you been
infractions.
to a professional sporting event?
Sometimes the infractions though are no like at the thank you at the
Raider fan.
at the professional level you're dealing with adults who are cashing checks, right? That's why it's so hard to be a coach because
Yeah.
you're trying to tell millionaire athletes how to do things a certain way and sometimes it doesn't connect. And in college, sometimes that makes, like, the age of the athletes and their infractions makes these crimes, I mean, it's even worse. And the thing that I'm thinking of,
That's
and I'm
on
sort
us.
of looking around and I see a Michigan hat, I don't see a Penn State hat, but like the Penn State thing, if there was an anchor who repped Penn State the way, like, you know, Van Pelt rep Maryland, or Stu rep UNC, or Greeny reps Northwestern, far less successful program, but like, if there was somebody who rep Penn State that way, like, they're going to be benched for that story because it's too much of a risk.
That's
And it's the worst story in the world. I know.
You can't even compare that to a cheating scandal.
Yeah.
Like,
Plus, I would
I
refuse,
understand.
if I went to Penn State, I would refuse the benching. Because,
I don't know that you'd have a choice.
well, I would, because I'm a
Because
journalist and
you're
I can
J.
do this.
Damn Harris.
Yeah.
I understand.
No, because of what Nicole said a few minutes ago. I know what I'm doing.
Bench
Leave
me
me
on
alone.
this. Yeah.
Exactly.
I picked the worst example. And I made it awkward. So,
Yeah, well done.
mission accomplished.
I think part of the challenge for younger people is the line blurred between what's acceptable on social media and what's acceptable as a broadcaster. And I think that's where it can create challenges.
there,
That's a good point.
it's like a lawless
Thank
land on social media. Like, literally, there are no rules.
It's
like,
an Outback
video,
Steakhouse.
like, we run into it all the time. We'll want to put something on the show because we saw, oh, so-and-so had it. That's great video. Oh my God, did you see that? Well, it's not cleared for TV. It's only cleared for Twitter. And you'll see it, like the SportsCenter Twitter feed or the SportsCenter Instagram feed will have stuff that we actually cannot put on TV because the rules are different. And you have to know that, but you have to sort of also keep that in mind, I think, with how you conduct yourself on TV as well. The rules are different.
And on social media, because there are no rules, but we still adhere to our own internal sense of values and rules with the things that we will and will not tweet or put on
Yeah.
Facebook or what have you. So we police ourselves based on our journalistic integrity and our human integrity in many instances.
I have one social media rule: take the high road. Right? You get engaged with knuckleheads, and they're going to want to stir something up with you and get a response. And I just say, thanks for your input, have a nice day, and move on, because there hardly ever results in anything good.
Really hard to do.
You're really
sometimes.
good at, you're good at that, though.
Sometimes
hard
I don't
to
like
do.
to do that, because, but I don't go back with like emotion. I will go back with facts. People don't like facts these days, and I could care less, because these are the facts, like them or not. That's my thing.
Yeah. I like that.
Any questions on this subject?
Wow.
I had a feeling we would, yes.
Mike?
Or the microphones.
I go back with sarcasm.
Good morning. My name is Austin Dillingham. I have a question regarding not necessarily the rise, because they have arrived, with the nature of like Barstool Sports and The Ringer. Is there any pressure on y'all to, kind of keep that, or kind of have that nature about y'all when you're broadcasting, like have the, fun kind of, giving jabs at one another and kind
I
of
mean, we have fun in the course of the show,
Yeah.
but it's not driven because we need to be like somebody else. We're just who we are.
Like, at some point in your life, you figure out your own voice. You
Yeah.
figure out who you are, and then you become sort of unafraid to own that. And I think when you hit that point, it actually makes you better as a broadcaster as well, because there's a comfort that comes with that, and that's on TV or in your job. But it's also just being comfortable in your own skin. And I've never felt, at least since I've hit that point, I've never felt the need to sort of compete with anyone else, as long as I know that I'm holding myself to the standards that are important to me, whether that's being funny, being engaging, being smart, whatever that is. In my own code, I'm comfortable with who I am, and that's not going to change.
So I'm the exact opposite. I am competitive, and I admire. No. I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying you're not.
Hold
Like Shea Serrano, Simmons, Russillo are three of my favorite people in this business, and I've never met Bill. I've never met Shea. Worked with Ryan, and I respect the hell out of what they do because of their authenticity and their voices. And at the risk of getting in trouble in Bristol, Barstool has done a great job of identifying with, to call it like a core base is almost underselling it. I mean,
They found their niche.
They
It's
did.
mainstream, but even that, like, it's like they haven't changed unapologetically like who they are, and that's men and women who, it's chicks in the office, it's spitting chicklets, it's everything. Some sports, some lifestyle, some bachelor, some bachelorette, like it's everywhere.
But
It's everything.
they do have a specific audience. They're speaking to a sort of specific group of people.
What is it? Thank you. I know
There you go.
I know
You know what I
one
mean?
bite really well. But obviously our interaction with them over the last couple of years has been well documented.
I'm
Interesting.
pretty sure I'm not their audience. Like I'm pretty sure like someone like me is not. Like some of the stuff I find funny, but some of the other stuff
Yeah,
you
I'm
could
not the
find
demo.
offensive. I'm not their demo.
But staying true to like they're themselves. They're their voice.
Because
all
they
of
found
it.
their voice and they're comfortable with their voice, and that's what they're going to do.
In terms of getting back to the competitive thing, like I'm always trying to get better at this. I'm always trying to figure out a group of people that we could get to watch the show or get to interact with us on social media or whatever, and without compromising who we are, and the Big J journalist, which I think should be your nickname, and I'm embarrassed that it hasn't come up already.
Mr. James.
But like that's sort of a roundabout way of saying like you can't not respect some of what they've built, and maybe you may not agree with how it's delivered and how, often things are run on the fuzzy side of the gray area, but their fan base is, you can't ignore it at all.
Other ones? And if there was anything online, just put your hand up and they'll come to you.
Hey guys, I'm Nolan Thompson. Good to see y'all. I was curious about working at ESPN, how they approached the social media policy when it first started coming around, as opposed to how they view it now. I would imagine that it's a lot less strict, or maybe they tried to approach it very. I don't know.
Everybody looked at Jay.
Is it more strict now?
It's like rules and whatnot and posting. And,
I
Can we plead the
hold on.
fifth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you referring specifically to the politics part of it or just social media in general?
I think it's a learning.
much politics, because I know ESPN generally likes to stay away from
Yeah.
Yeah.
the politics, just as far as like maybe posting a story on Twitter.
Well,
So there are
better.
I'll tell you
rules.
from my perspective, and then so they can have a little time to think about what they want to say.
Or not so.
I was there when Twitter first was becoming a thing, and literally every commercial break, my anchors would take out their phone and start tweeting, and I'm trying to give them traffic for what's coming in the next block and stuff. And that was happening so much that the bosses finally, that's why they said the no phones on the set and stuff. And their logic was, there are many more people watching you on TV than reading whatever it is you tweet. So don't worry about getting the information on Twitter. Let's get it on the air first. Clearly, over time, that has changed, and so I'm guessing to some degree that urgency has gone away, and there's a little more leniency with that. As a producer of the show, when we're doing a live show, I still want you focused on what we're doing and not putting dog pictures on Instagram. But I think that it's probably gotten a little more lax over time.
Jay?
I think it's from the beginning. It has been let's learn this together.
Sort of complicated.
Yeah, because no one knew. So you can't have a social media policy if you don't understand the ins and outs of social media. So it's still a work in progress,
Yeah.
to be totally honest with you.
I feel like sometimes there's a double standard within the four walls.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are held to different rules than others, which is why I sort of said it's complicated, and I think I'm just going to stop talking there before I get in trouble.
No, you're right. But that's like a life thing. It's
Very
yeah,
true, yeah.
but
Okay.
Yeah, but you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
So
Sometimes the best rule to live by is just don't hit send.
Herm Edwards.
Herm Edwards.
Just don't hit send. Like
Okay.
you could be mad and be like, no, just take a second. Like take a deep breath. Don't hit send. Just is it really what you want to put out there? Because think about in the last year and a half, somebody will have a big game, and somebody then will go through their Twitter feed from when they were 14, 15, 16, because they hit send on something that was not
Dicey.
cool, not nice, not intelligent, and it's coming back to like haunt them later in life, right? Just don't hit send. Don't put that out there.
I think for everybody in here who's going to be in the job market in a few months, a few years, whatever it is,
Perhaps clean out your social media.
you have a resume that you don't even know about or maybe even think about, and it's your Instagram feed, it's your Twitter feed, your Facebook feed, anything that an employer can go search about you if it's attached to your name, it doesn't matter how old you are, it's still something that you put online, and that shows decision making, and that shows judgment. And more often than not, if you're 14 and 15, it's probably not great judgment. And I'm looking at the Packer vest, like I'm just thinking of there's a star system everywhere. Aaron Rodgers can criticize Matt LaFleur all he wants and still have a job, and his key fob is going to work the next day. But Equinemius St. Brown, a couple of bad games, maybe not, right? And I think that's the case sometimes with any policy, social media or otherwise.
Just be smart.
Yeah, who you are plays into it, I think.
One more on this subject.
So 40 minutes ago, you were talking about the bias. Don't you think, to Gus's point, every time Joe Buck opens his mouth, people are waiting for him and his biases to come out? When it
What
comes,
biases?
What biases?
The Cardinals have the best fans. Just ask them.
But don't you think every time he says something, it's always like the fans are just waiting? It might be different for him because it comes through his family, but everyone's waiting for him and any sort of bias to come out.
I
Do you think it's
that's
harder for
part-
him because of the way that he got the job because of his dad. He knows he got the job because of his dad. But do you think it's harder for him to really cut those bias off?
That sounds like a very biased
That's a very biased statement.
Yeah.
No, I think getting a job in this business is about who you know, right? And it's about taking advantage of those relationships. And sometimes you put yourself in a position because of hard work, and sometimes that hard work puts you in a position of luck. And sometimes you're able to take advantage of the people that you know because they birthed you, right?
Yeah.
I'd have no problem helping my
They
children.
birthed you, is that what you said?
Birthed you.
Yes.
I'd have no problem helping my children someday if they wanted to do anything, whatever. It's what you do as a parent. You support your family, you support your friends, right? You sound like you're biased against Joe Buck. Right? Wait, no, that's fine, and that's fine. But you sound like you're biased against him, right? By assuming that he's going to have a bias. My mom is the same way. My mom we're Green Bay Packer fans in our family. My mom hates it when Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do Green Bay games. I don't hear it because I hear the professionalism, and I think that Joe Buck is one of the greatest voices in the sports industry. So I'm going to put him on a bit of a pedestal. But I think you sort of need to take your own biases out of some of that sometimes and listen to what they're actually saying. And
I think one of
That's
the great things about Joe Buck is any game he's doing, if you go on Twitter, you'll find an equal number of fans on both sides complaining about
Yes.
his bias.
Right.
So I think he
Like-
plays it pretty straight down the middle. But it's, to your point, Jackie, it is something that everybody focuses on, and you have to be aware of it. All right, I want to change gears a little bit, lighten it up a little bit, and talk about chemistry. Not the class I failed in high school repeatedly, but chemistry between your tag team partners. I had the great fortune of working with Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann, Bob Lee, Robin Roberts, Charlie Steiner, Craig Kilborn and his hair. Some really good partnerships over the years at ESPN, and not everybody works well together. And I think in recent vintage, Randy and Nicole are on the short list of best teams that ESPN has had on the air in quite some time. So Randy, I'll start with you. How has your chemistry with Nicole evolved since you started working together?
I think through fear and intimidation. You don't have a say. You really don't have a say. I mean, I think you get to a certain point maybe where, if you're someone who's been there 25 years, they're like, hey, who do you want to work with? But for me, it was, hey, we're going to try, like, Nicole's going to come to mornings, and we're going to, it wasn't even like we're going to see how this works. It's like you're going to do shows together for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I was on nights.
Yeah.
I was not happy when that got. I literally just agreed to a new contract, and the next day, I got a call from the new daytime boss and was like, "Hey, I'm super excited to be working with you again." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" Yeah, you're moving to days. Excuse me, what? I was not happy.
That was the three of us, right?
It was
Yeah,
to
the
start, it
show.
was the
Well,
three
yeah,
of us.
well, that was the
Yeah.
thing when the show that I started on was the 3-anchor show, and it's changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now I love it, but
Oh, you didn't love it.
I didn't.
No, I learned from Jay. One of the first shows that I did with Jay was one of my first SportsCenters, and this is Jay Harris, who at that point had been there 15 years. This is Jay Harris, right? And I am not Jay Harris. And he came up to me, and the first thing you said was, "I heard you made a human. Congratulations," because my wife had just had our first baby, and that was how I connected with Jay. And it was like, okay, he's a person too. He has kids. We talked about his kids. And then we went out and we did a show together. And in terms of, getting back to your point, it's not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
It's being like self-deprecating.
It's sharing.
Sharing a highlight, sharing the ball, so to speak, where if I've got a shot sheet and I'm, whatever, I'm not like elbows out protecting this from this person who's sitting next to me for 3 hours and 3 hours before that. Not flinching if she wants to come in on the highlight and vice versa. Like, it's just sort of sharing everything. And one of the first shows we did, I don't know if you remember this, that was just you and I, or actually Jay, so we do something called half-hour headlines at the bottom of every hour.
Yeah.
Where it's like pace, like fast, 20 seconds max, like move. And it's sort of like you can get a couple one-liners in, and writing is important. Mm-hmm. And we did something where you made fun of someone's hair, and I was like, I said something like, you're making hair jokes. Mm-hmm. And
because clearly you're growing like a chia
No, but I
pet
think
over
we
here
had
right
shown
now.
a photo of you early in your career where the hair was bigger, and you fired back with right away, like one-liner, so it showed that you could laugh at yourself but also give as good as you got.
But I also think
and go off script, which was my third point.
do you think that chemistry is something that you can have with everybody? Because I don't.
No.
And I don't think it's something that you can try to have. I think the best pairings that I've been a part of, like this is, pretend he's not here, far and away, I could not have asked for a better partner. Like, it's easy.
Go on.
It is. It's easy. Like, I get to go to work anyway, and I have a great job, but I have to go to work I have to be there at 3:45 in the morning. Like, that's not normal human operating hours, right? But I get to work with a great group of people, and this guy makes it easy. And we've now gotten to a point where we sort of oddly, weirdly, it was like can finish each other's thoughts, sentences, like we kind of know where we're going. But I feel like that just kind of happened. It's not like I put in the effort to make it happen.
It wasn't work. Yeah. No, it wasn't.
Like-
I think you can fake chemistry with anybody. That's sort of where I'll disagree with you. Where like,
No, you can fake it, but that doesn't
Yeah.
last. That does
Yeah.
not last
That's a
for
good point.
years or even a week, or a show. It'll fall apart.
it helps that our lives are similar though. Like,
Yes.
I'm not some single dude out, in Winter Park getting weird at a hotel bar. Like, not. Hey, there's
You were
still
that guy last night,
There's
though.
still time.
Say, wait, hold on.
I plan a very specific brand of weird for my retirement. It's gonna be so weird. But no, like we both have young kids. Our kids are
Yeah.
almost the same age. So like the sleep deprivation of like not only the job but the kids, part of it, I mean that's huge. And I think with Jay, it's the same value system. Neither one of us takes ourselves too seriously. Neither one of us. So it's always.
It's mutual respect in many ways.
Yeah.
On air, off air.
Yeah.
When I watch you guys on television, I appreciate you for all the things that are unsaid, because I can just see how you interact, and I don't need to hear what you're saying. You can feel it. I like music. It's a feel thing with me. So it just you feels good to watch you guys on television.
I think that there's also a credit that goes to our producers as well. Like, I think for the most part, since we've sort of fallen into this rhythm, we've been paired with 2, Lavoie and Daly, for the most part.
Yeah. For the most part.
For the most
Yeah.
part, 2 producers. For the most part, one of them has carried, I would say, up until recently, like more of the load. Like 75% of the time, it was this. His name is John Lavoie, and it's like it's sort of like a family, right? You get along, you kind of bicker, you kind of fight, whatever, but you work it out. But he has maybe changed the way that he produces shows as well, and maybe he pushes us in a way, but that's on them too. Like they can look at the anchor pairings and say, well, we can do this today because we've got these two, but maybe we're not going to do that tomorrow because we've got these two.
Yeah.
And that part of that is on them too.
That's a great point. It's a whole big team that makes this chemistry flourish.
Yeah.
I mean, with working with Hannah every day, and Mr. Artie Dolan is the same way.
Yes, he
Because
is.
he's just a nut, but he knows
His people.
he knows his people, and it works.
Yeah.
And as you students learn about rundown building and producing shows, as a producer, you have to recognize the strength of your team and recognize in the moment what's happening right now is better than what I have for pages D, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to let this go and let whatever's happening breathe for the next minute because it's great TV, and we can live without the quarterfinals of the men's tennis match in India today, and then the show's going to go on. It's going to be okay. But don't get so bogged down in your rundown that, oh my God, we're now 10 seconds heavy. We wrap. If it's great TV, let it go.
Well, what happened on Saturday?
We killed the Bombay Invitational highlight.
We did. Saturday, end of the last block of the show always features top plays, and they had redone top plays because there was a buzzer beater at my high school. Total nepotism, got it on the show. It was number 10, right? But it was a great shot. It was a great play, and it was better than probably something that was on there
but if that school's
anyway.
ever in a scandal,
Oh, yeah, exactly. But anyway, like, so we had the shot sheet in front of us, and the first 5 plays were not the plays that we were expecting because the mossing process didn't happen. So it was like the old version that was running, and we didn't. So basically, the last 3 minutes of the show were a shit show. Like,
train wreck.
Where what?
train wreck.
What
Train
were
wreck.
they though?
Beep show.
Got it.
Like, to the point that we're laughing, and then we come out on camera to say, like, another new hour of SportsCenter starts right now. We had gone over the top of the hour in top plays. Like, there's so, right?
wow.
And, right, we had gone over the top of the hour in top plays. Then we came out on camera laughing, and then we kept talking, and we still didn't get a count, and Daly just let it go, right? Until the director was like, how long are you going to let this go? And he rolled the stinger for the opening animation. Like, Chris Scott killed it.
Yeah.
But that was the point. Daly, at that day, was our producer. He was entertained by the honest shenanigans. Probably none of it made sense. But he was entertained by sort of what had fallen apart and how we'd gotten ourselves out of the mess and just let it go and didn't worry about, oh my God, it's the top of the hour. Let's just laugh for a minute on a Saturday morning.
Jay, I'm already regretting saying this to you, but you are Magic Johnson-like in that you have a history of making everybody on your team better, and you've had been paired with a lot of people over the years. So what are some of your keys for kind of trying to create that instant chemistry so that no matter who you're working with, it's going to feel like you've been doing shows with them for years?
Probably Randy touched on it, because whoever I'm with is my teammate, and we have a job to do. And it is incumbent upon me, especially if I'm the veteran on the set, to make whoever that person is feel comfortable, to let them know that I don't care if I've been here 15 years, we're on the same level, and I'll help you, and you help me, because I don't know everything, and let's just do a show and have fun. Matter of fact, I don't even see a camera. Let's just talk. So,
Who was the person that I just never clicked with? No, I'm kidding. Early in your career,
How many do you want me to list?
early in your career, who are some of the people that did that for you, and some of the things that you took from them that you've carried with you?
oh, golly. Bob Lee. Bob was my first. Can I curse?
Heard of him?
Can I say a bad word?
Self beep.
Okay.
It's a live stream. I don't know who's watching.
Okay,
We
all right.
always tell them about open mics, so.
Okay. So, my first show, Sunday morning, SportsCenter appeared on my schedule. I don't know how, but it was on my schedule. And I get to do a show with Bob Lee. And I've always been an outside the lines guy, and this is Bob freaking Lee, okay? He is like journalistic royalty. So I'm sitting there, I'm writing the show, we write our shows into these pods, I'm looking at my computers here, and he's right there, and I'm going, that's Bob Lee. And I know he notices, right? Because I'm obvious with it. So we get makeup, go to the set. I'm sitting there getting ready, put my microphone on, and he's right there, and he's still here. It's Bob Lee, and I go. He's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, you're Bob Lee. It's like, there's something wrong with you, stop it. So, and he could tell that I'm really nervous. And right before the show, he gives me the fist bump. And
Is that where you?
that's where I got it. And he says, don't F it up. Yes. And it was fantastic. We started laughing and the show starts and it was great. So those 4 words, and Levy tried it with me. I'm like, Bob already told me, I'm good. So that started, he was Bob Lee, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
Because we have a show to do and stop, just to talk to the people. So that was it.
I did not know that.
Partnership, chemistry questions, anybody?
Packer fan. Let's Packer backer.
That's Logan.
Why are you so hateful?
I'm not hating. I can see it like a beacon.
It sounds like hate to me too, Nicole. I don't know.
Not hate. Why would I hate the Packers?
I have a question regarding bad chemistry. Now, you made a joke about how there's some people you don't like working with, but what do you do in those experiences to make it a positive experience for you?
A lot of bathroom breaks.
But I mean, for like making it not like negative highlight reels, just try and take something away from it, because you're not going to have chemistry like you two have with everyone.
Can I take this for a second? So I think a lot of times in life, relationship-wise, you can learn and take away just as much from a bad relationship or a bad breakup or whatever it is, and learn what you don't like. And you can learn what you don't deserve, and you can learn where your threshold is for certain things. And so I think sometimes you can do that in a bad show. You can be like, oh, okay, they were really territorial with their highlight, so I need to maybe take the cue the first time, because the second time was really awkward when I tried to jump in on that Wizards highlight or an actual team we'd put in the show. So I think that's part of it, is you sort of like
Stay in your lane a bit more.
you stay in your lane, fairways and greens, play it straight.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult to not let it change who you are and how you do your job. Like there were a
You
couple
kind
of
of
guys.
still do your thing.
It's hard though, like, because I'm obviously like super buttoned up and straight laced and quiet and reserved, and so I think with funny people like Todd Grisham and Chris Hassel were 2 of the toughest people I ever worked with, because they're funnier than I am, and when they're the funny ones, it's like, what the hell do I do? So
Laugh.
You can't
Right.
try to one up them, because then it turns into open mic night at the Chuckle Hut, and then that does a disservice to the show. So then do you have to be the straight man, so to speak, and like that's not fun for you, and it's not who you are. So it's a real challenge. I don't know if I answered it, but it's a real.
Honestly, sometimes you just have to go and do your job. Like, not every shift is going to be fun. Like, on the way over here, we were talking about an anchor that I swear has asked to not work with me. And I don't know why, but there is no chemistry there at all. And I have that person on a schedule in the next handful of months.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
I do.
Can't
And
wait.
it's actually so awkward, it's funny, if that makes any sense. So while I'm not totally looking forward to it, I am in a weird way, because now it's become a challenge, and it's not about her, it's about me. And it's like,
All right, well, let's do this.
Hold on.
The morning of that show, I want you to say SportsCenter full sail ahead, and we'll all know that this is the show to be watching for.
got it. Because it's going to be a big challenge for me to be able to stay in my own lane and be true to myself and do my own thing without letting that person sort of compromise my joy in my job. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't know why this person doesn't like me,
I
but
think
this
that-
person
This
doesn't.
genderless person.
I think the non-competing point is a good one. I did a lot of shows with Kenny Mayne where people tried to keep up. I did a lot of shows with Craig Kilborn where people tried to keep up, and they just failed miserably. And so when we talk about finding your voice, you got to be true to who you are regardless. Hopefully it works with the other person, but that goes back to the don't try to be what you're not, because you are not going to succeed at all.
Who was your Bob Lee?
Jay Harris. No, I mean it was probably Jay, in terms of somebody I got to do a show with early.
Yeah.
And somebody I used to respect. No, but somebody I came into that building being like, it would be really freaking cool if I did a
Yeah.
show with that person.
One of mine was Jay too, and you know this story. I had to have a surgery in the morning, and I was supposed to take the day off, but Jay was on my schedule that night, and I was like, no, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna sleep. I was like, probably high as a kite. I went to work that night. I was a little late getting to work. I skipped a meeting. Like, I think we were supposed to be there at 4 or 5, and I like rocked up an hour late, like given the morning, obviously. But I literally went to work that night because it was the first time that I was going to work with Jay, and I was like, I'm not letting this opportunity go by.
Speaking of opportunities.
Don't do that, by the way.
We only got
Stupid.
about 6 minutes left, so as the producer and me is trying to keep the line moving
Keep us
here.
on time.
Randy, you said something on the air the other morning on the weekend about opportunities.
Yeah.
Quickly, just remind or tell the audience what it was you said.
I sometimes always advice from Rando and Briscoe
That's right.
that you make the most. It's so important in life to make the most of your opportunities, especially if it's the last opportunity.
So what was the big opportunity early in your career that you jumped on that really kind of set you on your way?
Wow.
Besides the paper boy.
Early, yeah, besides the paperboy career, I took a job sight unseen because it was a job. I'd moved home. We're gonna learn. We're gonna trust each other here. My parents split when I was in college, so my mom got a smaller house and I had no room. So I slept on my little brother's floor when I came home from college. But I thought, man, I'm gonna be here for a couple of weeks. I'm gonna get this job. I'm gonna go and be on TV. And it took 6 months. And I slept on my little brother's floor and I temped. And I got a job in Lawton, Oklahoma after auditioning for Dream Jobs. Remember a Dream Job on ESPN? Remember that game show? I don't know if anybody does.
It was like American
like
Idol
before they
for
were born,
sportscasters. Yeah.
Did you
Did
really?
you?
Whereabouts?
I sent a tape in Walton, New York. I didn't hear anything back.
Oh, I didn't know you could do the tape thing. I drove to Chicago and did it. Okay.
There was auditions in New York City, but
Yeah.
there's things going on, so they allowed some things to be sent in as well.
Okay.
There was, I wasn't terrorism, but there was some shutdowns in New York City around the time, so there was
Okay.
issues with the
Mass
auditions at that point in time. So there was some rescheduling and stuff like that.
So I remember sending a VHS tape to everywhere. I mean, we were talking about Macon, we were talking about Jacksonville, like
TVjobs.com.
Yes,
yes.
TVjobs.com. I've been rejected from everywhere in Montana. Montana didn't want me. Okay, I had hair you could climb like a cliff. I had straight up spikes. I had sideburn. Like I wouldn't have hired me out of college, and I got a job offer in Lawton, but there was an audition for a dream job, and I made it to the round of like 30. So I was in the room where Stu pared it down to 10, and there was a woman from a town next to mine with my last name who got in, and I was like, I'm not getting in. They're not gonna have two Scotts on that show. So that was probably my break, was like being willing to drive halfway across the country and live in a state I never would have lived in and cover 8-man high school football and put it on the news because the town loved football so much but didn't have a big enough school to field an 11-man team, you know? And you learn some things. You learn about 3.2% alcohol beer, you know, which is like butter beer pretty much. I mean, it's fictitious in that it tastes great or does anything. So yeah, anyway, yeah, that was probably my...
Jay, networking is a big part of this business.
Yes.
We've had 15 grads so far. Of the 10 who are already working, I would say 8 got their job through somebody on my staff.
Mm-hmm.
What's your best advice for our students when it comes to networking at such an early point in their careers?
Find people that you like or that you think you'd like to be one day and try and talk to them. Google them, learn their background, and see if you can do informational interviews, see if you can shadow. Pick several people, because some people are going to say no, but someone will say yes. And just don't be afraid. Because, and I was telling the story last night, I went back to Old Dominion and when I went to college, and in front of a group of a bunch of people, a bunch of communication students, I gave everyone my cell phone number. And one of my fraternity brothers was in the audience. He's like, what the heck's wrong with you? What are you doing? I said, no one's going to call me.
How many called?
I got 3. One wanted the name of a person that I mentioned in Pittsburgh because they wanted to do event planning. The other one wanted to talk more about what I was saying, and the other person just wanted to say hi. But no one took real advantage of that opportunity that I was trying to give them. So take advantage of the opportunity because people will appreciate that.
And start now.
And start now.
Yeah.
Like if they say, hey, holler at me, holler at them.
Yeah.
Nicole, we spend a lot of time talking about professionalism, and here we tell them that means getting your homework done on time, turning your assignments in on time, showing up to your class on time, because when that translates to a job, if you don't do what your boss tells you to do, or if you decide you're just going to show up to work late every day.
I got fired from a job for that.
Right, there are consequences besides maybe not passing a class. So what are your thoughts on professionalism and how it relates to what we do?
Professionalism is the face that you put on for everyone else to see, right? And it's how you want to be remembered. It's how you want to be represented. It's how you want to be seen. And if you're the person that's going to go out there and work hard, you can make 10 mistakes, but you're working hard, you're trying, you're caring, you're a professional. The mistakes are going to be sort of forgiven. The mistakes are going to be worked with. You have to hold yourself accountable, because if you don't hold yourself accountable, somebody else is going to, and they may be harder on you if you're not hard enough on yourself. And what they can do to you is actually more damaging, because they can take your job away. They can take your paycheck away. So if you hold yourself accountable by being professional, you're given the chance to sort of make mistakes and grow and learn, because you're trying and you're caring and you're working hard. And that is the person that you want to be and how you want to be seen as you continue to grow.
It can take a moment to get a reputation. It can take years to get rid of it, especially in this business. And even at a place like ESPN, you get tagged and it sticks, and it's tough to shake.
Done.
Yeah, that's true.
Any questions before we wrap it up on anything? We've got a couple minutes before we have to roll top plays, and maybe we'll go over the top of the hour.
Good morning, guys. My name is Lee, and I'm in sportscasting and sports marketing and media. My question is in regards to Tony Romo and Stephen A. Smith securing rather large contracts recently. How has that changed the sportscasting horizon?
Ain't changed nothing for us. It's life-changing for them, not for
Yeah,
us.
I mean, think about it. Tony Romo played a game and put his body through what he did for how many years, and now he's doing significantly less work and making more money doing it. I mean, good for them. I wish that maybe it would trickle down a little bit more to us little peons, but I mean, hey, if eventually that's a game changer across the board, then you are welcome.
And it speaks to them and their unique talents for the things that they do.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Stephen A. on the radio, driving from Pittsburgh to Virginia Beach, and he was on the radio in Philly. And I didn't know who he was, but I liked listening to him because he was courageous, unafraid, told it like he felt it was. And I was like, this guy's he's gonna be all right. And he's kept that going. So Nicole mentioned finding your voice. He's one of those folks that found his voice early and was not afraid to be himself. Tony Romo is the same way. He's like, I know how to talk football. I know what's going to happen. And he just like, this is going to happen. And it did. It does. Because he just knows it. And he's just in the right place.
Chances are you're not going to walk out of here into a $17 million contract.
Yeah.
So, like, perhaps get that out of your head a little bit. You're going to
Unless
have
you're
to
Nick
sleep.
Jacoby. Where's Nick? You're a $17 million man. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Attaboy. There you go.
Like, you may have to sleep on your brother's floor for a little bit. It's okay
fine.
to,
It's fine.
to
The
be
dog
humble
sleeps
and
there,
work
too.
your way up. It's good.
But I think with regard to the business, though, I think it shows how important live events are. That's Romo's
Yeah.
deal. I think the ratings are there to support that. And then for Stephen A., it shows that the ratings are there. I mean, we see this in-house. Like, First Take is a monster. And there's a lot of support for First Take because the audience is so loyal and the audience is growing at a time where audience stagnation is considered a success. You know, year over year, if you're treading water, that's worth celebrating right now because people are still trying to figure out the landscape of cord cutting and tune in versus DVR versus streaming versus, I mean, all of it. And I think for an audience to grow the way First Takes has, I think you can really like trace it to a financial,
True.
windfall for him.
One more thing for Stephen A.
Yeah.
He's an old newspaper man. He's a journalist at heart. He's a writer at heart. So all the skills that you're learning now, the foundational skills, they mean something. They mean a lot. You can do a lot with the foundation of this business that we're in, this journalism, sportscasting, whatever that we're in. So learn it, be it, live it.
We are out of time. Thank you for coming. Let's hear it for our panel.